Kia ora everyone. I had a really good question this week from a teacher who was asking me about teaching consonant blends and whether we should teach them as a unit or whether we should teach them as sounds on their own and how we should do that. So I thought I would make you a video to answer that question. Turned out a lot bigger than I planned, but here it is. So teaching consonant blends for reading and spelling. Here we go. Now Louisa Motes says that blends should not be taught as a single sound in phonics instruction for reading and spelling. And these numbers have come from the excellent 5 from 5 website, and the link's just there for you. So we know we have 44 speech sounds in English, or 44 phonemes. That's 24 consonant sounds and 20 vowels. In spelling, there are 27 initial consonant clusters in English, and there are 49 final consonant clusters in English, so letters that can be combined at the ends of words, like nd in hand, or nk in skunk, mp in jump. So that's 76 different combinations of letters we can have at the beginnings or ends of words. There's also 176 common graphemes. That's our most common units of letters or little letter strings that can be used to represent individual speech sounds. So there's a lot of code knowledge for our learners to memorize. So we're going to teach them blends or blending. One's a noun, one's a verb. I really like this graphic from That Reading Thing, and this is used with permission from Tricia Miller. So she's made this infographic which says we could teach our learners to recognise 17 graphemes, that's these green ones on the left here, and 32 initial consonant clusters, that's 49 things, or we can teach them to learn these 17 sounds and their corresponding graphemes and teach them to blend those sounds. So if we give them the skill of blending, then they can make all of these consonant clusters over here. Now there are more than 17 graphemes that they need to learn, but this is just to illustrate the point of how we can be much more efficient in how we teach our learners to handle consonant blends. Okay, so I see charts like this in a lot of classrooms, and this chart shows common blends and digraphs. And the funny thing is that most of these charts will have only beginning blends when actually there are more consonant blends at the ends of words. But you see we've got them all lumped together, bull and brr, along with the digraphs, which are two letters representing one sound, when all of our blends are representing 2 or 3 consonants together. And these charts are really aiming to help children to learn these as one single unit or piece of information. And what happens when we teach students that a consonant blend is one thing is we start to see that being reflected in their spelling, that if they haven't got really strong phoneme awareness and they can detect all the individual sounds inside a word, we'll see them dropping sounds out in their spelling. So frog might be represented as fog, and they haven't picked up that r sound in there, or sleep might be written as sleep. So they're not finely discriminating all of the sounds in the word. So we're going to get into phonetics a little bit. A phoneme is a speech sound that we can hear and feel, and we often talk about what sounds can you hear in this word, but we're not just tuning in to the sounds that our ears are picking up. We're also wanting our learners to start to tune into what their own mouth, lips, tongue and voice box are doing. And you see that represented in their spelling. The tricky thing about consonant clusters or consonant blends is that when sounds are together in a word, each sound impacts on the sound next to it or adjacent to it, and this is called co-articulation. So each sound will impact on how the sound beside it is shaped, and so sounds in a word sound a little bit different to how they sound when you are sounding out individual sounds to make a word. So for example, we've got a 4-sound word. Let's think of the word train. T, r, a, n. When we say the word train, those sounds all smush together a little bit and the edges get blurred. And if we sound out that word with the sounds on their own, t, r, a, n, then we can hear each individual sound, but they're slightly different. So it's really tricky for young children to pull apart a word into its individual sounds and detect them all when each one is shaped by the one before or after it. And this really shows up in particular with a pair of consonant blends, our TR and DR. So to explore this, I want you to try copying me and saying the sound t, t. Okay, feel how your mouth is shaped for that sound. It's a bit of a smile, using the tip of your tongue to make the t sound. Now I want you to try making a sound. Do you feel how your lips are now in almost a rectangle shape, a big open sort of oval? And now try tr. So imagine you're going to say the word tree, but you don't say it. So make the shape. Do you notice that already your lips are forming into the shape for the R and not the T sound? So that R sound is impacting on how we shape our mouths to make the T sound at the beginning. And what that feels like is this sound. Ch. So if you try making a ch sound, you'll feel your lips in that shape, which is very similar to the R shape, especially when you combine it with a T, so tr sounds like ch. And it's really common for young children to get those two sounds mixed up. They sound very similar and they feel very similar, and that's what they're tuning into, is the feel of their mouth. And they're then selecting the letters they think represents that, which will be a CH. And this R effect can be so strong, so try the sound S. Feel how your lips are out in a smile. Now I want you to prepare to say the word strawberry and see what happens to the shape of your mouth now. Do you see your lips are already going to form the R even before you've said the S sound? So that's co-articulation in action. It's changing the way each sound is produced because of the ones beside it. So what this looks like in beginning reader and beginning spellers writing is that they might write the word train as chain because they feel that shape in their mouth. They might write the word factory as fat tree, and they might write the word drop as, they might feel that j sound, and might write drop. And you know what, if I see that in beginners spelling, I'm really pleased, because that shows me that they're really tuning into the speech sounds they can hear and feel, and they're then linking that with a grapheme to or a letter string to represent those sounds, and that's a really good start. Okay, so we're going to look at some activities that we can do, or a teaching sequence, or all of the things that we can do to put in place the skills that children will need in order to manage to read and spell consonant blends. So the first thing I want to show you is working on phonological awareness and working on blending. And here I've got just an example of two bingo boards which I've made. So the first bingo board on the left has got 3 sound words on it, what we call CVC, or consonant vowel consonant. So we've got pig, p, e, g, and feet, f, e, t. And the second board on the right has got 4 sound words, and these ones have got consonant blends in them. So hand, h, a, n, d, swim, s, w, e, m. And this is a game that works really well one-to-one or in a small group. You could even do it whole class. I do it with the pictures up on my screen. I have a slide with the pictures, and everyone has to think of their answer before they're allowed to call it out. And I work on this blending skill right from, if I'm working with young children on their speech sounds, I'm teaching them this oral blending, listening to the sounds and forming a word, right from 3.5 years up. And 3 and 4 year olds can quite easily learn to do this. I'm not saying we have to teach all young children to do that, but I'm saying we can certainly expect our junior students at school to be able to develop this skill. And it can come really quickly. So I'm going to show you a video of me doing this with my children and just to demonstrate how I would do this blending bingo. So for this game, I'm going to say a word really slowly, and I want you to see if you can hear which word I'm saying and find it on your board. Okay? You ready? All right, here's your first word. So, who's got this one?
Sun.
Sun.
I get the first frog.
You get the first frog. Pop a frog on there. Awesome. Okay, who's got this word? Are you ready? Nest. Nest.
I've got the second frog.
Fantastic. Who's got this one? And.
Hand.
Ooh, good listening, Millen.
And the cat.
All right, you can hop your frogs away. See how far you can make them go. Good one. So you'll notice during that video that my son, who's 4.5, was answering for his sister with the consonant cluster words. So he had a board that only had CVC words, but he was able to do the 4-sound words with consonant blends. So he's ready to move on up. And you don't need to keep students at a level where they've mastered it. Just keep on moving them up in a complexity of word structure. So with more consonants and consonant blends. Another great activity you can do for blending is to ask your students to leave the classroom or move to a certain spot and give them the word just with its sound. So you could say, okay, I want you to sk, p to the door, or I want you to j, p down to the mat. I want you to k, l, p your hands. So that's a nice way to get them moving and do phonological awareness at the same time. Okay, so we've looked at blending, and the next skill we'd want to work on is segmenting. So I often introduce this idea to children using mandarins, and I'll get a real mandarin into class and I will have them hold a mandarin, and I'll say, right, this mandarin is like a whole word. And inside the mandarin are little parts, and I'll see if anybody knows what each part is called. It's called a segment. And so we can break a whole word up into the smallest sounds that we can hear inside the word. So a whole word is shop, and the smallest sounds inside the word could be sh, o, p. And I try and help them understand the language that we're going to use to talk about this activity, so segmenting. Now, segmenting is much more difficult than blending sounds to form a word. They have to be able to isolate each individual sound, and this is something that usually develops once children start school. So I'm going to show you a video where we're using this board here. This is just a board I quickly made up with a treasure box and some treasure, and I'm going to get Annika to listen for all the individual sounds she hears in a word. Now we then go on to add letters in the box underneath, but if you were just beginning, then it's just fine to do this orally and not adding any print to it. So we're just going to identify the sounds that we can hear without worrying about writing letters down for spelling. But segmenting is really important for spelling. So blending is really important for reading. Once children develop their letter sound knowledge, they need to be able to then blend those sounds that they've said out loud to read a word. And segmenting is really important to be able to spell a word, because we need to be able to hear all the individual sounds to then record a grapheme, a letter, or 1, 2, 3 or 4 letters to represent one speech sound. So here's a video showing you how I do one segmenting activity. All right, we're going to do a segmenting activity, and we just wanted to show you that if you don't have a laminator, then these are the plastic covers that go on the front of spiral binding, and they're excellent for writing on with whiteboard markers. They're much easier to wipe than laminated sheets, and they're great if you've got a workbook and you don't want to write on it. You can use it again and again. So pop that down. So we've got a treasure box with some coins on it. How about you put some treasure on the treasure box there? Yeah, put a good handful on.
A handful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're only going to, yeah, maybe 5 or 6 bits of treasure. Oh, that's plenty of treasure. Okay, good. All right, now I'm going to give you a word. They're flying a...
Flag.
Flag. Okay, let's put some treasure on the coins for each sound.
A.
Mm-hmm.
Flag.
Super. Okay, can you write down a spelling for each of those sounds?
G.
Great.
Flag.
All right, you can use the magic wand and pick up your treasure. How about we say the sound each time we pick one up?
G. Flag.
And now you can rub out your letters and read the sounds as you rub them out.
Flag.
Nice one. Okay, now we're going to look at phoneme manipulation, which is the most advanced level of phonemic awareness. And this is when we teach children to be able to delete sounds, to add a sound, or to swap a sound around. And this advanced level of being able to work with speech sounds, it really underpins the brain's ability to store written words in long-term memory, to be able to read them instantly. That process is called orthographic mapping, and that's the process of anchoring the sequence of letters to the spoken word. Okay, so this great book by David Kilpatrick, Equipped for Reading Success, has a wonderful introduction that'll give you lots of good information about how reading develops. And it's full of all these activities, these 1-minute activities. So most of the book are these lists of words, these very quick phonemic or phonological and phonemic awareness activities that you can just do out loud, and kids really enjoy them. I'm going to show you as an example doing a few different levels with Inika, where we're working on consonant blends. And these ones you'll see have got those tricky TR and DR blends, which will really help our young children to begin to detect the difference between a ch and a tr and a j and a dr, which is very hard. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Say brush.
Brush.
Now say brush, but don't say b.
Brush.
Say great.
Great.
Now say great, but don't say g.
Great.
Say ski.
Ski.
Say ski, but don't say s.
Key.
Say trim.
Trim.
This time don't say t.
Rim.
So once they've got in the routine of the whole sentence, you can drop the now say brush, but don't say b. So we'll do it like this. Say scare.
Scare.
Don't say s.
Care.
Say clap.
Clap.
Don't say k.
Clap.
Good. Say snap.
Snap.
Don't say s. Say snap.
Snap.
Don't say s.
Nap.
You got it. Alright, so that's H1. That's deleting the first sound in a beginning consonant blend. This is level H2, so we are now doing phoneme manipulation, where we have to swap out one sound and replace it with another. You ready? Say blue.
glue,
Instead of b, say g.
glue,
Say cry.
cry,
Instead of k, say d.
dry,
Yeah. Say glow.
glow,
Instead of g, say f.
flow,
Say drew.
drew,
Instead of d, say g.
grew,
He grew a big beanstalk. Stay free. Say free.
free,
Instead of f, say t.
tree,
Yeah. Okay. So that was phoneme swapping. And then we get to the more tricky part of taking away an internal consonant from a blend, which is much harder than taking one off the start. So it's inside the word. You ready to try this one? Say steal.
steal,
Say steal, but don't say t.
seal,
Got it. Say swung.
swung,
Say swung, but don't say w.
what is
Say swung,
swung,
don't say w.
sung,
Yes, well done, you worked it out. Say stash,
stash,
don't say t.
sash,
Great. Say breach,
breach,
don't say
beach,
Fantastic. So that's showing, David Kilpatrick talks about getting to an automatic level of being able to just do this, and you noticed Inika could do that at the first ones we did when we took off the beginning sound of a consonant blend, and then when we got to the internal one, she's imagining the word, taking it out and rereading the word. So that's not an automatic level, and this is where we're going next to practice with the 1 minute activities, which you really enjoy, don't you? They're good fun. Okay, thank you.
that's okay.
Okay, now I want to show you sound swaps. This is a really excellent activity. It's really the ultimate phonological awareness and phonics integration that we can do. And if you take one thing away, then I'd love you to try doing some sound swaps. They're also called word chains or switch it, all sorts of names, sound ladders. But it's basically when we have some letter tiles. We can also do it just with a pen and a whiteboard, where we're getting our students to build a word. So they have to then segment the word into its sounds and make the word. They have to have letter sound knowledge to be able to attach a grapheme to the phoneme that they hear. And then we ask them to change one sound in the word. So they have to then segment the sounds again, isolate the sound that needs to change. So that's phoneme manipulation. Swap a new sound in, blend the sounds back together using their letter sound knowledge to read the word back. So it's really practicing all of those skills in one activity, and it's a very powerful one to build up that both of those skills, phonological awareness and letter sound knowledge. So I'm going to show you a video of us doing this activity. This does work in a small group, and I've put a link below to Dr. Marnie Ginsberg of Reading Simplified, demonstrating this with a group with consonant blends, and it'll show you that it can be done, and you might get some good pointers on how to do that. You ready to build some words?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do some sound swaps. Let's just check that we know all of those sounds that you've got in front of you here. Okay, let's go across. You point to them and say them. Super. Okay, can you please build the word tin and say the sounds when you pull them down? Okay, super. All right, can you change tin to tip? Good. Now you've got tip. Can you please change that to trip? Trip. We took a trip to Wellington. That's it.
Trip.
Great. And change trip to trap. We set a trap for Daddy. Good. Say your sounds, read the word.
Trap.
Good. You've got trap. Now change it to strap. Okay. So we're going to build the word strap. Can you say the sounds and read what you've got there?
Strap.
Okay, just point to them one at a time and say the sounds.
Strap.
Okay, and what are you trying to build?
Strap.
Okay. I think we need one more sound there. Let's have a listen. Ah, That's the one. That was a tricky one. Okay, say the sounds and read your word.
Strap.
Oh, fantastic. Change strap to strop.
Up. Strap.
Neat. Okay, last one. We'd like you to change strop to stop.
Up. Stop.
Good. Time to stop the word game. Well done. So an important point to note is that children's phonological awareness, that underpins their development of print knowledge and their ability to read and spell, but their interaction with print or their print knowledge then also influences their phonological awareness. And so as they start to see these consonant blends represented by graphemes, just like in the sound swap activity I just showed you, this helps them to become more consciously aware of all of those individual phonemes within the words. So it's a bit of a reciprocal relationship as early reading and spelling develops. So after we've done really good solid phonological and phonemic awareness with consonant blends, we want to move on to reading and writing with these consonant blends. So we're bringing in letter sound knowledge, but we don't need to do whole pages of one particular blend because we're not trying to teach blends as a unit that has to be memorized. So we don't need to do that. What we do want to do is lots of reading and writing words with consonant blends in them. Words on their own, and then words in sentences and words in connected text. So these activities from top-notch teaching or anything similar to this where we are reading the words using our letter sound knowledge and blending sounds together. So practicing a variety of consonant blends are fantastic. So you can see all sorts of blends, beginning blends, ending blends, and all sorts of combinations of letters that occur in words in English. We want to do writing of words, so we get that letter formation, handwriting, writing single words, and then writing words in phrases and sentences, and then we want to see that transfer over to their independent writing. So we can do dictated sentences like this little phrase, stomp on the spot, or trip in the pond. As they're building that fluency and automaticity of blending, we want to take them to text. So this is a decodable book, an example of when the adjacent consonants come in the Jolly Phonics books, and this has got a sentence on each page. Dad mends his red tent. Lots of practice of blending different consonant blends. So when do we want to teach consonant blends? So as I said, we can start working on blending well before we even get to school. We can do that in fun games, and we can work on segmenting sounds really from school entry, so we want them to be able to do that orally really well. When we bring it in with their reading and spelling is usually about the second half of the first year of learning to read and spell. So I'll show you in some of these different sequences of systematic synthetic phonics of when this skill is introduced and taught. And usually it's when our learners have got a really good solid knowledge of the basic code, so they know their short vowels, a, e, o, a, and they know all of their one-to-one consonants. Sometimes they've already done digraphs before they do consonant blends, or sometimes that comes just after, but usually it's around that point. So here's an example of several different phonics scopes and sequences, which this handout comes from the Dyslexia Spelled Foundation of Western Australia. This is downloadable on their site. And I've just circled where adjacent consonants or consonant blends, consonant clusters, come into the sequence. So you can see it's usually after this basic code has already been mastered, and then we get VCC, so vowel consonant consonant, or CVCC, CCVC, etc. So here's comparing the UK letters and sounds. Sounds Right and Dandelion Readers are the same sequence. We've got Jolly Phonics, that's not on the page where adjacent consonants come in. Little Learners Love Literacy, and the PLD sequence, which is an Australian system. So just to sum up, I want to really encourage you to think about how we can teach blending, not blends. We don't want our learners to have to memorise an extra 76 bits of information. We can use the knowledge they've already got of single letters and sounds and teach them how to blend those into consonant blends and consonant clusters. Well, thanks for watching through. I hope you've got some useful strategies to help your students learn to blend and segment consonant clusters for their reading and spelling. Let me know if you've got more questions and I might make you another video. Kia ora.